And there we go. So welcome, everyone. We are glad that you're able to join us tonight. It's our first happy hour of the year. So my name is Christine Kohlzaug, and I'm the Executive Director at Sustainable San Mateo County. And tonight we are going to talk trash. Basically, we are going to look at SB 1383. That's the new state composting law. And we'll really dive deep and really more about this law. So I did want to start by giving you a quick overview of our organization, Sustainable San Mateo County, or SSMC for short. So we are a local nonprofit. We've been around since 1992, so a long time. Our vision is to enable a sustainable future for everyone, for all in our county. And we really, our mission is to accelerate sustainability in the county. And I think one of the unique features of our nonprofit is our 3Es approach. So we truly believe that sustainability needs a systems-wide approach. So we think that in order to be truly sustainable, you need to have the 3Es in balance with each other. And that means a green economy, a healthy environment, and social equity. Oops, let me try to move. Here we go. We have our first little glitch. Here we go. I did want to briefly mention our key programs. So we have different programs, and all of them pretty much fall into 3 buckets. So we have one bucket that has to do with metrics and measurements. That's where we have our indicators report fall under that category, and also our newest program, the Sustainability Dashboard, which tracks annual progress by San Mateo County and its local cities via a series of sustainability metrics. So stay tuned, because you'll hear more about the Sustainability Dashboard a little bit later in Q2 of this year. So that's the first bucket, the metrics and measurement, because truly you can't really, I mean, you have to measure things to see if we are on the right path in reaching true sustainability. And then we have one bucket that deals with inspiration and recognition, because it's true, I mean, we do have a long way to reach full sustainability, but there are some amazing organizations that are doing some really fantastic work out there. And that's where we have our annual awards fall into this category. And to a certain degree, also our happy hours, which are also very educational in nature. And last but not least, our last bucket is a bucket that deals with solutions, because once again, the path is, it's a journey to get to full sustainability, but there are some amazing solutions out there, and we don't always have to reinvent the wheel. So I would invite you all to go to our website and check out our Sustainability Ideas Bank. It's full of policy solutions, mostly for local governments, but also for businesses. And hopefully, you'll find some inspiration in that. So just a word about our impact. I mean, you can see this slide here. So up to date, I mean, we've had close to 20 happy hours. Actually, this may be the 20th happy hour, actually. And in terms of the solutions that I mentioned, we have close to 80 solutions now in the Sustainability Ideas Bank. And we're also able to recognize over 160 award winners. We started the awards program in 1992, so it's been a while as well. You can learn more about us on our website. Again, I did want to briefly highlight some of our upcoming events. So the next happy hour after this one is going to be on March 9th. So you can already sign up, but stay tuned for some more details. And for now, we are trying to have the happy hours every second Wednesday of the month. So that's the plan, and we'll see how it goes. So you can already save the date in your calendars. And then I wanted to mention our annual awards ceremony. It's going to happen on May 11th. And we are thrilled because not only is it going to feature SSMC award winners, but for the second time, for the second year, actually, will also act as the platform for Peninsula Clean Energies Award winners. So that's going to be pretty exciting, and we are thrilled because we have State Senator Josh Becker, who is going to join us as the co-host. And then I did want to mention also in conjunction with the annual award ceremony on May 4th, we have a pre-event that's a VIP exclusive event. So we are currently seeking sponsorship for our annual award ceremony, and everyone, organizations, and or individual that sponsor us at the $500 level and above is invited to this VIP exclusive event. And just contact us if you want to know more, if you're interested in exploring our sponsorship options. So wanted to just take a minute here too to thank our 2021 award sponsors. At the benefactor level, we had Alexandria Real Estate, we had Linkso Garden Materials, Genentech, the Sand Hill Foundation, and the San Mateo County Transit District. So thank you so much for your continued and valued support. It's really important to us. We couldn't bring you these programs without this support. And just a little plug, so if you feel like it, I mean, of course, any donation makes a difference, no matter how big or small. So you can definitely support us by texting support SSMC to 44-321, or you can also, again, go to our website and check this out. So I think with that, I mean, let's get started tonight. Super exciting, turning organic waste into gold, what the new state composting law means to you. So just some shoot outs here to my happy hour team. We have Kirsten Keys. She is our board vice chair and our happy hour liaison. Unfortunately, she cannot be with us here tonight. She typically moderates our happy hours, but I think we have a very fantastic moderator tonight. So then I wanted to also thank Marjorie Matic. She is my executive assistant and has been helping a lot, especially on the PowerPoint front. Leanne Eberhardt is one of our longtime volunteers. So if you're interested in volunteering, you can also definitely, I would encourage you to touch base with her. She's been really active on a lot of our programs and committees. And today she is going to run the trivia portion of the happy hour. And then finally, we have Susie Hodges, who is also who has been also volunteering with SSMC for a while and really doing fantastic work. So thank you, team. So tonight, as I mentioned before, we have Joe LaMariana. He is the executive director at Rethink Waste, and he's going to be our moderator for tonight. And then our speakers are Monica DeVincenzi. She's the municipal relationship manager at Republic Services. And we have Gordon Tong. He is with the County of San Mateo's Office of Sustainability and is a program manager. All right, so SB 1383, what is the new state composting law? What does it mean for you? There are a lot of regulations around SB 1383. It's quite confusing, and I'm very confident that with a really expert, subject matter expert speakers will definitely dive deep into SB 1383, and hopefully we'll be able to answer all your questions. So we'll skip that. So again, I mean, it's so confusing with this whole composting, and I think that's a good segue to basically hand it over to Leanne, who is going to get us started. But let's see, first, I think I had a quick poll. I have to briefly stop my screen share here. And let me see if I can get it. Yeah, we just wanted to know our audience a little bit. So, okay, so let me just launch first a few questions about how many of you have attended a happy hour before, and then also how you heard about this event. I'll give you a minute.
Wow, it's like a horse race here.
That's true.
You're going neck and neck.
Right. Yeah, it keeps on moving. So I think, what do you think, Leanne? I mean, do we have like a good?
We have pretty good, yeah.
So let me see if I can share that with you. And here we go.
Can you see it?
So that's great. I mean, I can see that many of you have already attended previous happy hours, and for some of you it's new, so that's good too. And then how did you hear about this event? So it looks like we're doing a good job with our newsletter. And then thank you, partner organizations, for also helping us to spread out the word. All right, so I have a second poll here, and that's more about, you know, gauging the familiarity of the audience with SB 1383 and its requirements. So we'll give it also a couple of minutes. And while you're doing that, I think I need to say, so for those of you that haven't participated into our happy hours, they're really meant to be fun and interactive, hence the trivia that will get started like pretty soon. And if you, like me, have a green drink, I hope you do, I would encourage you to just, you know, put in the chat box what you have as a green drink, and feel free also to introduce yourself. I think we just have like too many people with us here tonight that we can do a round of intros, but by any means, it would be great if you would like to introduce yourself in the chat box. All right, I think with that, I'm going to stop the poll. And as we can see, it's like pretty evenly distributed, but I mean, it still looks like for like more than half of our audience tonight, SB 1383 is either new or they have like some idea of what it is all about, but it's still a little bit confusing. And then again, so I think we have a good spread of in terms from where the audience comes from. So it looks like about a fifth from government, a fifth from nonprofit, some of coming from the business community. So that's going to be good. We'll have like quite a few topics to address. Okay, so I think with that, I mean, let me just briefly go back, and Leanne, I will turn it over to you with the trivia. All right, so whoops, no. We don't want to spill the beans. Here we go. Oh, okay.
Oops.
Just click a few. Here.
Okay, so here we go. The sorting game, which is also on Recology if you care to play the game. But in what bin do the following items belong? Paper takeout containers, single-use coffee cups, animal waste, chicken bones, pizza boxes, newspapers, and black plastic containers. So here we go. I think, let's see, we've got one And how you reply, you can either reply in the chat or you can hold up your fingers, and we'll go from there. 1 is all go in the green composting bin. 2 is all go in the green composting bin, except for the chicken bones, animals, single-use coffee cups, and black plastic containers. 3 is all go in the green composting bin, except for the animal waste pizza box, as well as newspaper, single-use coffee cups, and black plastic containers. Or 4, all go in the green composting bin, except for animal waste, black plastic containers, newspaper, and single-use coffee cups. Oh boy. Okay. We've got a resounding number 4. Well done. So, all right. Again, either in the chat or holding up your fingers, organics account for how much of the county's disposed waste stream? 1, less than 10%. 2, about a quarter. 3, more than a third. Or 4, more than half. All right. Getting some more varied answers on this one. This is good. 3s, 4s.
Come on, don't be shy.
All right. And re-ending 2s, 3s, 4s. This is good. No 1s. All right. So I believe, Christine, the answer is 4.
The answer is actually number 3.
Aha, okay.
Close. And I mean, you know, as we learn from Gordon, it's not always easy actually to keep track of the different waste streams. So, all right. So I think with that, we are ready to move forward. I did want to introduce Joe LaMariana. He is the Executive Director at Rethink Waste. And Rethink Waste is a public agency. So Joe joined Rethink Waste in 2016 after serving in local government for 10 years as San Mateo County's Solid Waste and Environmental Services Manager. And before working at the county, Joe worked for over 13 years in the local solid waste industry's private sector. So truly a veteran and very knowledgeable of anything related to waste. So as you can see here, Joe also serves on a variety of organizations and associations, and also has been a passionate advocate for strong environmental legislation and has long shown a robust commitment to the community. So thank you so much, Joe, for your dedication to sustainability, and we really appreciate all your efforts. And I think with that, I'll pass it over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Christine. And I'm going to take the happy hour moniker quite literally here. I'm seeing in the chat room, a lot of folks are drinking tea and beautiful hetchy water, etc. I'm drinking aged grape juice, so I'm enjoying it thoroughly. So thank you so much. And thank you, Christine, for your leadership with Sustainable San Mateo County. It's a great organization, been involved in it for many, many years. And we really miss the awards, dinner, banquets that we've had over the years. We'll do it virtually again this year, and keep on keeping on doing the great, great work. So it's a real privilege here. Look at that. We've got 75 people on the line tonight, and we're expecting more based on the signups. But, you know, it's such a privilege to be talking and a pleasure to be talking to like-minded thinking people in our county. Our county has been really on the forefront of the environmental movement and really affecting change in many environmental sectors. And tonight we're going to talk about the solid waste sector, and specifically we're going to talk about the organics material that is in the waste stream, and by law now, as of January 1st, 2022, needs to be redirected away from landfills over to other resource recovery types of paths. So really, really exciting topic. I can tell you that the law was passed in 2016, and it took 3.5 years to actually get through the entire rulemaking phase. So that ought to tell you the level of interest and complexity. It is broad and expansive. It reminds me, and I've got the gray in my whiskers here. Check that out right there. I got the gray in the whiskers to prove that I was around in 1989 when one of the other landmark laws came into effect, AB 939. And this is every bit as expansive in its own way. And it will really fundamentally change how we handle and collect material and process organic material, and more importantly, make sure that it gets to a higher and better end use than going into a hole in the ground and covering it with dirt. So really an exciting time for our industry. My organization, my agency is Rethink Waste. We're based in San Carlos. We are a public agency that's owned by 11 jurisdictions. We handle all the solid waste, recycling, and compost material that is collected, handled, processed, and transported from East Palo Alto to Burlingame. So we handle about 60% of the county's material. And I'm joined here tonight by two amazing colleagues, Julia Al and Joanna Rosales Jose. Hello, guys. Nice to see you. Your name's there. And together we handle, with our amazing contractor, Recology and South Bay Recycling, we handle about 500,000 tons of waste material each and every year at our San Carlos transfer station facility. So that's who we are. We serve at the pleasure of 11 elected officials, and they help set policy and direction for us. And so with that, I am going to introduce the first of our two amazing speakers, Monica DiVincenzi. She is the Municipal Relationship Manager at Republic Services. You can see her bio right here. It's incredibly impressive. Both Monica and Gordon are experts in our industry, and we are really fortunate to have them as speakers. Monica and Gordon are also longtime friends. Boy, that's the wine kicking in there. Longtime friends, and we've gotten a lot of work done, together on many initiatives. And tonight we're here to talk about 1383. So Monica, I'm going to hand the reins over and the floor over to you. I know you've got some slides and you've got some thoughts on how Republic Services is approaching this. And it is a partnership with the governmental entities and agencies, and also the private partners, which tend to be on the hauling side of things and the processing side. So Monica, why don't you take it away? The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Joe, for those kind words, and Christine for having this very important topic on the agenda and inviting me to speak along with Gordon. And Gordon and I are actually going to tag team the presentation, so we will flip through the slides as we go through the presentation, and Joe can give a little bit about background of Gordon at that time. So
yeah, I'll jump in on that one, Monica. Just let me know when your part's done, and then I'll give Gordon his proper due. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
You bet.
So as Joe mentioned, 1383 is probably the biggest piece of legislation that has come out of Cal Recycle, affecting our world of garbage and recycling in over 30 years. And it is a beast of a piece of legislation. Christine, you can go ahead and start the slides, please. Okay, I think we're having some issues because the PowerPoint, at least on my screen, went away.
Does everybody went away in mine too, Monica?
Okay.
Screen share.
Okay. Well, I'll just start talking because I know what my first couple of slides were, and that's really about who Republic Services is and what we do. So we're a national recycling and solid waste service provider across the country. And we're a Fortune 500 company, one of the best places to work, and really our focus is on sustainability and environmental programs, primarily around collection services. Locally, we service the city of Daly City, town of Colma, and the city of Half Moon Bay. In addition, we own and operate Ox Mountain Landfill, which is the most beautiful landfill that you will ever see if you ever have a chance to go to it. It's off of Highway 92, and it is the only landfill in San Mateo County. By legislation, each county is supposed to have a disposal location for all the waste produced in the county and have 15 years of capacity for the material that is sent to be buried. And so the last numbers that we have seen, that I've seen on Ox, puts it out to almost 2040, I think is the most recent, or 2038, somewhere between that. But as I mentioned, Ox Mountain is our only landfill in the county. And so all of the waste for San Mateo County, and even some from the neighboring counties of Santa Clara and San Francisco, come to Ox Mountain. And so because it is the only landfill that we have, it's really imperative of us to keep the life of that landfill as long as possible. And how do we do that? We do that by recycling and composting and keeping the materials out of essentially a very highly engineered hole in the ground. And so the longer we do that, it means we do not have to truck our material out of county. So it not only saves on costs, but also on greenhouse gas emissions, because we're not trucking the material and everything. So really it's a resource for the whole community. So Christine, let me know if you want me to try to run the slide from my end, because it's not our PowerPoint. There we go. Now
Going backwards.
it's a different presentation.
Yeah, as we're getting the slideshow prepared, if I could just comment on one of your thoughts, Monica. Ox Mountain Landfill is the current only remaining active landfill in the county. There are numerous closed landfills. They have their own responsibilities and environmental integrity compliance issues, but the only active one is Ox Mountain, and it's quite an asset for our community. So completely concur with that.
Okay.
All right, looks like we're getting going.
Okay, and actually, if you don't mind introducing Gordon, I'm gonna see if I can get our presentation up. Joe, can you introduce Gordon real quick while I see what's going on?
Yeah, thank you, Monica. So I now have the privilege and pleasure of introducing a very dear friend like Monica, a longtime colleague, Gordon Tong. Gordon is a sustainability program manager with the county's Office of Sustainability, emphasis on waste reduction. I had the pleasure of working with Gordon when I worked there, and know him to be very sharp, very passionate, like all of us on the call, very, very, very committed to the topic. Gordon has worked there for a number of years and has really distinguished himself in many ways. Many of those accomplishments are listed there. I'm not going to read each and every one of them, but I can speak with the highest confidence that Gordon is somebody that we really look to for leadership. Most recently, Gordon has served as a TAC member. He's just been elevated to the full TAC member to represent the agency, represent the county with our agency. So Gordon, thank you so much for that. So you're going to jump in on this? Is that how it's going to work, Monica? Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So Gordon, go for it.
Okay, thank you. if someone will let me share the screen, I can.
Here we go.
I can pop the presentation up.
You guys need some more of this.
We apologize.
Yeah, we got to get our synchronization down here. It's all good. It's all good. I see some familiar faces there while we're waiting. Hello, Joe Lees and Mark Hirschman and Seppi and Teresa. Many of you, Judah, Terry Nagel. There's a whole bunch. I better stop there. I'm going to forget somebody.
Okay, can you guys see that okay? Is it on?
We're good.
Okay, so sorry, we did this, the introductions and the overview. Thank you again, Joe. And so I will skip these. This is who I am, or who Republic Services is. And we went through this. So with this, I will turn it over to Gordon for the county.
Take it away, Gordon. Gordon.
Did we lose Gordon?
Oh,
okay.
Hi. Thanks, Monica. Thanks, Joe. Sorry, I was on mute. Thank you for the introduction, Joe and Monica, and thanks, Christine, for having us here. And Monica, if you want to advance to the fourth or fifth slide where there's the OOS logo, that'd be great. But in the meantime, I can just go on and talk just really briefly about our office, the Office of Sustainability. So our office, the Office of Sustainability, is a recently created department within the county, and our focus is really on help making this county more sustainable. Our tagline is trying to build a sustainable community that fulfills both the needs of the future and the present. And with that, we have 4 different program areas that we actually run through. We actually represent through our work, starting with climate change, where we work on everything from climate mitigation and climate adaptation and to climate resilience and all those programs in between. We have an energy and water program area where we do energy efficiency, water conservation, and also stormwater work, and also put together countywide collaborations like our RICAPS, Regionally Integrated Climate Action Planning Suite program. Our Livable Communities program focuses on affordable housing and increasing transit options like walking and biking throughout the county. And last but not least, the program that I run, which is the Waste Reduction Program, looks to reduce waste and improve diversion opportunities throughout the county. We do everything from composting and recycling. We just finished a composting workshop that where we teach residents how to start composting at home. And we try to meet compliance with state laws like 1383, like we're doing today. And we run education programs throughout the county. You might have encountered our schools team that does assemblies and classroom activities for teachers up and down the county. And if I could do a real quick plug, we have a grants program that just started accepting applications today, where we give out about $250,000 to community organizations and schools throughout the county. So that's live right now, and that's trying to tap into some innovation that's out there in our community for those who want to apply for a grant. So those are kind of the different areas of that we focus in our office. There they are. And I'm really happy to be here and talk more about 1383. And with that, I'll pass it back to Monica.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, and we can skip to the next page. So really, the reason why we're doing this is because organic waste, which is basically food scraps, yard waste, food, soil, paper products, all of those things. When the state looked at these numbers in 2017, approximately 27 million tons of organic waste was disposed. And by disposed, it means it was taken to a landfill and buried. The other component is there, as you've seen across the news and Just in our experiences as we go to work, there's a lot of food insecure in the state. And so SB 1383 not only focuses on the material that's going to waste, but also a food recovery component that Gordon will speak to some more when we get into further into the presentation. Next slide. The other important factor with organic waste going to the landfill, and this you may also be aware of, is that when organic material breaks down, it produces methane gas, which is a highly pollutant climate impact gas and affects our environment significantly. And so all of these factors were taken into consideration. And as Joe mentioned, it took the state over 3 years to come up with the final regulations that we're living through and starting to comply with. Next slide. So what are the requirements? These are the requirements for SB 1383. The state had set prior to SB 1383 going into effect a 50% reduction in landfilled organic waste. January 1 of this year, so not that far long ago, SB 1383 took place and went into effect. By the year 2025, the state is looking to reduce organic waste landfill by 75%, and by 2025, 20% recovery of currently disposed edible food for human consumption. Next slide. Other requirements. So SB 1383 has a lot of specifics that go into it. On the collection side, on the hauler side, which is kind of where folks like myself, Recology, South San Francisco Scavengers, we're primarily the haulers for the different communities throughout the county. And so we're working with our jurisdictions to be in compliance with the regulations. And for the cities, what it means is that all residents and businesses must be provided organic or composting services. It's mandatory now. It's a mandatory service. It's not a opt-in or voluntarily accept the program. So the fortunate thing is San Mateo County, by and large, has been pretty ahead of the curve. And so we've had residential organics recycling for a number of years. We've offered it for our businesses, but it hasn't been like recycling your blue cart where you get your garbage service and your recycling came with it. SB 1383 now makes it to where you get your garbage service, your recycling, and your organic waste. The other requirements around SB 1383 are that container colors and signage are fairly consistent. And so gray or black is garbage, blue is recycling, and green is for organics. Depending on where you live or work, you may have different colors. I know like in Daly City, our businesses, the metal containers are completely backwards compared to the new mandatory color. So that is one of the things that we'll be working on. There's requirements about signage, education and outreach to make it as feasible to get the information out to everybody as possible. There's contamination monitoring. There's extensive reporting on the jurisdiction sides and lots more. Next slide. And this is Gordon's part.
Great, thanks, Monica. So yeah, the next, one of the biggest parts of 1383 is the edible food recovery program. And in my opinion, it's one of the more innovative parts of 1383 because it's part of waste that doesn't usually get talked about too much. So just to talk about the requirements of the law, the biggest requirement is, I guess, to form an edible food recovery program. And part of that includes identifying what the state terms tier 1 and tier 2 generators. So tier 1 generators being the really large generators of edible food. They include large wholesalers, very large grocery stores, and other businesses that generate quite a large quantity of edible food. And tier 2 generators are the smaller ones, which are larger restaurants, some institutions and hotels and things like that. Still large quantities of edible food, but not quite to the level, like say, a small grocery store. So the law requires that we start identifying these generators in our county, so we can start doing some of the outreach to them. The idea is that they would have to reach out to food recovery organizations throughout the county and arrange for their surplus edible food to be picked up and distributed to people in need throughout the county. The law also requires the jurisdictions to attempt to increase the edible food recovery capacity throughout the county. So these organizations I talked about, like the food banks and other sort of organizations that pick up and recover food, to help them increase the capacity through increased transport, refrigeration, things like that, that would need to happen to make this program a success. And lastly, the requirement is to also conduct enough outreach and education to all these generators and to the community so they understand these requirements, and help, and that we have to also do the enforcement for it as well to make sure that these generators and organizations are participating in the program and report all this back to the state on a regular basis. If I could go to the next slide, please. Next slide. Oh, one back. Sorry. There we go. So the county's program specifically, what are we doing to help us meet this requirement? So the county has worked together with all 20 cities in the county to put together a county-wide program. So we have one regional approach, and that has the benefit of having consistency throughout the whole area. And given how our food system operates with one big food bank and these kind of partner organizations up and down the county, it kind of makes the most sense. So the Office of Sustainability is taking the lead with this effort and establishing this partnership and working with the generators and these food recovery organizations to distribute, to set up these contacts to distribute food. So under our program, generators will have to, these tier 1 and tier 2 generators that I talked about earlier, they'll need to contract with a food recovery service or organization. So like these partnerships that we have below, Second Harvest Food Bank, Nuestra Casa of East Palo Alto, Pacifica Resource Center, Samaritan House. These are just some of the organizations that we're working with to connect with these large, wholesalers, grocery stores and restaurants to figure out a way to pick up and collect their edible food that they have surplus of and distribute them to their own community. And this is a perfect partnership because these community organizations are already out in the community and they already have these links in terms of where to distribute this food. So our program leverages that strength that they have in these partnerships and these organizations that are already existing and partner them with these generators that will need to comply with 1383's edible food recovery requirement. Next slide, please. And then the next piece of 1383 is around procurement. And there's really two main parts of the procurement requirement. The 1383 requires that all the jurisdictions throughout the state procure a certain amount of what they call recycled organic products. So the idea is that with all this compost being generated because of 1383, like Monica said, with all this new collection that's going to happen around organic waste, there needs to be some way to market it or to create a market for some of this material so that the system, is sustainable. So the state's answer to this is to have the jurisdictions procure a certain amount of compost, mulch, or renewable natural gas that's based on the population of that particular jurisdiction. And that creates sort of the incentive for, creates sort of the market for this compost that's being generated. And that's sort of another big requirement of 1383. The paper product requirement is where jurisdictions must adopt the policy so that their internal operations, it has to procure paper products that meet certain standards of 1383. Again, it speaks to the sort of marketing requirement or marketing motivation to sort of find a market for these materials. And these jurisdictions will have to adopt a policy which requires that the paper that they purchase are both recyclable, so that all the paper products can be recycled, and there's a minimum amount of recycled content that that they purchase in these paper products. So those are the two main requirements for jurisdictions and how they have to comply within their own operations to meet this requirement. They have to adopt a policy that addresses this. And I think with that, we try to give you a really quick spiel of 1383, but I think that's all that we had for sort of like that quick spiel. We're happy to take any questions, unless Monica, there's anything else you wanted to add?
No, thank you, Gordon. And as the three of us talked about, 1383 is a very heavy, large piece of legislation. We were joking before the meeting started. I told Gordon if we had technical difficulties, he could probably do this presentation since he's been living and breathing it. And he joked that even CalRecycle probably doesn't know everything about 1383. It is, you know, so it is a learning process for all of us, but the haulers for each jurisdiction and your cities are working together. So Recology is working with the SBWMA cities. South San Francisco Scavengers is working with their cities on exactly figuring out how to roll out all the pieces of this. And so if you haven't seen or heard much from it yet, it's okay, it's fine, actually enjoy it, because we're probably going to be bombarding you with so much information over this coming months and year about it. And how it rolls out will vary from community to community, but we are all going to be working with our residents, our multifamily units, and our businesses to bring them on board. There is some grace period allowed from the jurisdictions. And so while the legislation goes into effect January 1 of this year, there's a 2-year period before jurisdictions can start taking enforcement action against those who are not in compliance. So really what I've heard in talking with my colleagues is that the approach is really these next 2 years is educate, 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 try to bring everybody into compliance as much as possible before looking at any kind of enforcement action against those who are not in compliance. So bear some patience with us as we figure this out and work through it, but happy to take any questions. And I know there's a lot of questions that were going into the chat as well. So
Monica, could I jump in with a couple of thoughts?
Sure.
Thank you. Great overview. We look forward and welcome the questions. First of all, I want to acknowledge, yes, we did have some handoff issues there. I saw one comment that was very fair, talking about rehearsal. And I do want to mention, we've had a lot of people involved in this discussion and presentation today, and we just were not able to connect the dots as well as we could have, and I think it showed a little bit there. But we're through that. Want to get through this conversation. I also want to acknowledge the county, and the Office of Sustainability has taken a leadership position in the edible food recovery in a way that many other communities throughout the state have not done that. And I really want to acknowledge that. I deal on the statewide level with many industry nonprofits, and the county recognized that edible food recovery was a net benefit to our society and the people in need here. And they took ownership of that. And as I've told a number of people, you know, those of us who are in the hauling industries, we focus on the used food business, not the edible recovery food business. We're not in the business particularly to run refrigerated vans full of food to Samaritan House or to St. Anthony's or throughout the county for folks in need. We're just not set up that way. We operate on a different scale. And because of that, the county recognized it, funded it, and I just can't commend them enough on that. So congratulations, Gordon, and your team in getting that. That is a huge lift off the ground. And in fact, many around the state are modeling that, that initiative for their own behalf. And Monica, you also mentioned that this is truly a collaborative effort between the franchised haulers and the governmental agencies. At the end of the day, it's the governmental agency that's accountable for it. And when that 2-year grace period is over, there are enforcement fines that are involved here. And so it's everybody's working real hard to get as many people and many businesses on board on a voluntary basis during the next 2 years to really diminish the group of folks that we're going to have to sort of perhaps come back with a big stick on. But by law, we're required to do that. So just be noted on that. So with that, let's take some questions. I've seen the chat line lighten up here.
So just to clarify a couple of the questions that I was seeing through this legislation, and I apologize, I use jurisdiction because I'm in my city contract mode. A jurisdiction is a city or county. So the legislation applies that each city or county in the state has to offer or have the programs for organic collection, food procurement, and food recovery and the procurement components. And it's applicable to all residents and businesses in each city and county. There are some exceptions for very small towns or rural areas, but basically most of San Mateo County and all the cities within the San Mateo County, this applies to. So.
Joe or Christine, do you have a preference on how we answer these questions? I'm happy to answer them in the chat too, or I don't know how.
Why don't we tackle the chat room first? And I'm getting some by text as well for folks that have my.
Yeah, and I see Larry's hand has been up for a while. If we can have Larry ask this question.
Thank you. Actually, my question, I think, was one in the chat earlier, a very important one about this capacity of Ox Mountain being reached in 2038, 2040. So my question is, as we go about the new bill, as the great job the Sustainability Office is doing, number one, is it possible to lengthen that capacity further out? Of course, at ultimately, at some point, we will reach the limit. So what do we start doing then? Do we start trucking stuff to the Central Valley or what? Because obviously, I would think the price of real estate, we're not going to be opening up new landfills in San Mateo County. I just don't see that. So can either of you three perhaps touch on that in future?
Sure. I can talk a little bit about the life of the landfill. So the more material we keep out of it, so the more we compost, the more we recycle. We may be here 5 years from now, and I can tell you that it's got another 15 or 20 years of life left on it. So that is the goal. To maintain that capacity. Basically, it is a hole that we're filling up with this. So the more material we keep out of it, the longer it can last. Separate from that, permitting a new site in San Mateo County would not happen in my lifetime. I don't think. There's that NIMBYism of not in my backyard. Also, we don't have really a lot of space for a site that would accommodate the waste. So you start looking at having to then truck the material out of county. Joe, Gordon, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that.
Jump in on that as well. Larry, great, very astute question. Every landfill has a finite amount of space that they're permitted to handle the material to come in. So to Monica's point, every pound, every ton of material we divert, we're buying future capacity for our kids, our grandkids, whatever. So that's in all of our best interests, and that's a secondary benefit of our efforts in this. I do say secondary. I think the primary benefit is using the organic material at its very highest and best use, either through edible food recovery or using it for compost or mulch or something as a soil amendment. So that's it. I do know that having worked for Republic Services over the years, I was the recycling director at the San Carlos station for 4 years. I can say that the company owns a lot of the surrounding properties. So when that particular canyon is full and has achieved its maximum capacity, there is the potential, I use the word potential, that it's possible that some of the adjacent area can be incorporated there, but that is an extraordinary effort on the company's part, and it is the company's effort because it's a privately owned asset. So that's kind of a separate conversation for another day, but one thing is very true. At some point, somewhere in the future, that asset will maximize. It will fill up, it will be closed, and at that point, it will be very expensive to truck material to somewhere far away, and we will incur the greenhouse gases associated with that trucking. So it's really to our advantage to do everything in our power, and the people right here, the 70 people that are on this call right here, have the power to extend that. So that's my thought there. Let's see, what other comments do we have? What other thoughts?
Looks like Ann had a secondary point on that.
Yeah. Ann Snyder, yes?
She said Aplanolio Canyon is going to come back into play. Is it still about 30 million to create a new landfill? I'm not familiar with that canyon. I know it's more than 30 million to create a landfill, but I don't have the dollar amounts, but it is quite expensive, and the permitting, all the environmental EIRs and everything else that go into trying to permit a landfill, or as Joe mentioned, you know, if we wanted to look at expanding Ox Mountain, it's decades to get something like that passed and done.
Yeah, that canyon next door is the canyon I was referring to, Ann.
Okay.
And that is, when I was at Republic, that was the alternative space we were considering at that time. Frankly, it's at least a 10-year process to get it through the legal and EIR challenges and working with the community. It is a very sensitive topic and expends a lot of political capital to accomplish something like that, and really would require the community's support. So those are all unknown items. But here we're actually talking about the 1383. So I'm seeing other questions pop up here, but if anybody wants to express the questions directly, that would be terrific.
Hey, and Joe, I'm sorry to interrupt here, but I'm just seeing that we are coming towards the 6:30 mark. So I wanted to offer to everyone, if it's okay with our speakers, to stay on the call a little bit longer, maybe another like 10 minutes or so.
Sure.
And if you need to go, then you go, but we'd love to have you a little bit longer. And we'll also try to look back with you all to answer any questions that we won't have the time to touch upon tonight.
Thank you. Looks like Susie McGee has a question. Susie?
Yes, thank you. So a number of them, like I put in the chat, I see businesses, bins all mixed up and not corrected. My neighbors, I can't get them to use my compost bin even. And then what about Bedwell Park? You know, that park in Menlo Park that's built on landfill, and they use, they utilize, I don't know if you know about that, but it's an amazing place. And they actually take the methane out of it and use it for something else. I don't know what.
Well, you packed a few things in there. I could comment there, and if the panelists want to join in. Regarding the gas, certainly just the act of landfilling creates, with organic material, creates the biological breakdown of organic material that creates organic methane gas and other biogases. And if the facility is large enough, they capture and harness that material and use it as a renewable green energy source. And Ox Mountain has 6 turbo generators that do just that. So they're on it. Smaller facilities, sometimes it doesn't pencil out for them to make that investment in the capital that's required. So that's part of where the state of California is coming from in terms of diverting the material out of these landfills to be used at a higher and better use. And then you had also mentioned about the businesses not fulfilling that. That'll be on the jurisdictions and their franchised haulers to make sure that all of the options are available. People are properly educated to maximize that. And at some point, there will be penalties involved, financial penalties, and those penalties by law will escalate. So if you don't do it the first time, you're going to pay X amount of dollars. And then if you keep not doing it, that's terrible English, sorry, but
Yeah.
as you press on, it'll cost you more and more. And pretty soon, that's an economic choice on your part, right?
Part of SB 1383 requirement that I mentioned earlier was reporting and auditing and contamination. So you will be seeing people flipping the lids on containers more frequently, and of all three containers, really, to make sure that garbage is only in garbage, recycling is only in recycling, and organics is only in organics. And on the back end of it, the processing side, there are contamination requirements and monitoring and reporting as well. So the facilities that we send the organics to process and turn into finished compost, they will have thresholds that they have to meet. And so if we send them garbage, they'll tell us, no, we won't take it. And so it's basically a closed loop circle to try to get this material as clean as possible. And like I said, we'll be focusing on education the next 2 years to not only get on board with the programs, but to make sure that you are truly only putting in those items that belong in those containers.
Thank you, Monica. So Elaine has been very patient, and then why don't we go to Heather after Elaine? Elaine, go for it.
Hi. So I compost at home in order to not have to buy compost, and because I know it's organic, but I am concerned that maybe what I'm doing is not so environmentally friendly because I'm not collecting my methane. So is there a way to compost at home that reduces the amount of methane produced?
The only way that I know of would be in an in-vessel composting system, and typically that's not really practical for a residential unit. But I think I would always recommend that folks do it as close to the source as possible. So I commend you for what you're doing. If anybody else wants to comment on that, you're welcome to.
Yeah, I can comment that a little bit. I mean, composting, as far as I know it, is generates not a pretty negligible amount of methane compared to like if it was like anaerobically being digested, like without air. Anaerobic means without air. So if you're composting the correct way in your backyard, and turning it every so often, and keeping the correct ratios, the amount of methane that's generated actually isn't that much. So I think composting is the way to go. And I think unless you have like a huge amount of waste that's just sitting under a tarp or something where it's not getting a lot of air, and it becomes, when it's anaerobic, when it starts smelling really bad. So if your compost doesn't smell bad, I think you're on the right track.
Okay, great. And one other question. So I understand that compostable bags that look like plastic bags, but they're compostable, should not be put in the compost bin because they impede the movement of the microbes. Is that true?
Are you talking about your backyard composting or in the carts?
In the carts.
Okay, so depending on where you live and who your provider is, BPI compostable bags may be okay and maybe not. So you need to verify with your hauler. In our communities that we serve, and I know in the SBWMA communities, BPI certified bags are okay to use in your home compost or in your green compost cart. Those do break down. There's also a screening process. So if it doesn't quite break down, it will get screened out. But we're very particular about the type of compost bags that you can use at home. But you have other options. You can use paper bags or your containers, like your ice cream containers or juice containers, layer it in between your yard waste, that sort of thing, to help with the ick factor of composting in your cart, if that is an issue. So follow up with your hauler. There's lots of tips and tricks that we've got for everyone. So
great, thank you.
Hey, Heather, you've been waiting very patiently. Let's turn the floor over to you. Thank you for your
Thank you for your presentation tonight. I'm very excited to hear about the edible food recovery that will be trying to get people in need food that we're throwing away. So very excited about that. Curious if you can speak to what's in place to keep nutritious food for those who are most in need. When you're most in need, I would imagine having some of like processed foods and different things are not enabling health in your body. We're really looking into different ways of viewing health and food as preventative ways to keep our bodies safe. So what protections are in place through this bill to monitor that? Or does it go to Gordon and your each organization that takes on that accountability is then kind of tasked with that? Could you expand?
Yeah, thank you, Heather. Yes, that is something, I would really point to our partners because they're the ones that have the expertise in this. They understand where the need is and in terms of like the food bank, what they can distribute. And I think a big part of the bill that is sort of is pretty important is that it puts a lot more leverage in the hands of these recovery organizations. Because right now, before this law passed, these organizations pretty much have to ask these restaurants and these grocery stores to give them, they have food, and it's sort of like a one-way sort of relationship. But this law makes it so that they're required to do so, and these organizations are allowed to reject the food that they don't want obviously to take spoiled food or things like that. So it really puts the onus on the generators instead to start thinking more about how they can reduce their own food so they don't have this surplus, and so they're not just producing all the surplus food that they can't really distribute because we can't really distribute like 100 pallets of sheet cakes from Costco, for example. That's sort of difficult to do. So I know our partner organizations have been really trying to incorporate it as more of a supplement to some of their offerings already. So Second Harvest, I know, does a lot of giveaways for residents. They have these packaged foods, and then they kind of supplement it with some of this extra surplus food to make it a more of a nutritious and balanced sort of a giveaway. But it's a learning process, and we're still in the beginning stages of this. And I think as we get on and on with this program, we'll learn more, and we'll work with our partners to determine the best ways to distribute this food to both people that need it and make sure that the food is healthy and nutritious.
Wonderful. Thank you for...
Hey, I'd like to turn the floor over to our dear friend and colleague, a woman with many, many years of experience in our industry. She works for South City Scavenger, Teresa Montgomery. I've seen your comments in the chat. They're spot on. Teresa, do you want to just take a minute and share them with everybody here that we can learn from that about waste reduction?
Yeah, can you hear me? I'm on a phone and having issues too.
Yes, yeah.
We can hear you fine.
Yeah, go for it, Teresa.
I just wanted to sum up with what I had said there, that our main takeaway is that if we can reduce the volume of waste we're creating, as well as the variety of waste, then we might be able to talk about having enough regional facilities to deal with all this stuff in a way that we're proud of. I see a lot of comments about, do we have local composting facilities that are going to be cited? To my knowledge, no, there's too much NIMBYism. Are we going to have another landfill in our lifetime? Probably not. We've got an anaerobic digester up in South City that we've been operating for years now. We're very proud of it. And the methane that it creates, we capture to fuel our fleet with. So it's a closed loop, very environmentally friendly operation. But building those takes a lot of money. And then people complain because we don't allow you to bag your waste. If you bag your waste, then when you spray bacteria on it in a digester, the bacteria cannot get through that bag to break down the food, because those bio bags are meant to last for at least a few weeks. They don't break down in a 21-day cycle in a digester. So, there's a lot to know here, but definitely too much to cover in an hour. So many great questions from so many dedicated people. I'm super encouraged. Nobody should give up, but please be patient. Just look for information from your cities, from our wonderful county office of sustainability. and from your haulers. We're going to do the best we can. And we're all trying to do our best, but we can't put the cart before the horse, so to speak. We couldn't do a lot until our cities had a chance to pass the ordinances that SB 1383 required. And those just passed. And we're just getting to a point where we can do all the work that they require and then turn to possible enforcement in a couple of years. I will say even the city of Brisbane at the very top of our county is going to start enforcing in January of 2023. So they're going to be first up. So just bear with us, everyone. Keep a good attitude and do the best you can and try to convince others to do the same.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah, and South City Scavenger, of course, they handle South San Francisco, they handle the city of Brisbane, they handle Millbrae, and they also handle San Francisco Airport. So they're a loud voice in our community, and I'm really glad Teresa got a chance to speak to that. And it looks like Ann Snyder's had her hand up for some time. Ann, I know you've always got a thing or two to say. Go for it.
Hi, and again, I'll just reiterate that I'm putting on my commission hat on the statewide commission for recycling market development and curbside recycling, but it's also my own opinion. And having worked in recycling market development, I'm disappointed that we are saying that because of NIMBY, we can't create a commercial composting operation in San Mateo County. I absolutely believe it's possible. I hope that all of the NGOs here know that we are also a very large farming community, and farms are going to be the largest source of markets for compostables. And if we want to do the right thing for the generation of greenhouse gases, we need to be working, and I'm sorry, it's likely going to be on the coast side. It's not going to be on the bay side, but we have opportunities, and we have to say, oh, we have to stop saying NIMBY and instead saying this is a goal. For those of you here in this county, San Mateo is not a recycling market development zone, of which I used to administer it in San Jose. But that aside, we don't have to be an RMDZ. There's going to be new funding for these things, but what we have to have is a can-do attitude. And that's the same going along with the enforcement questions I put in the chat. I would love to have a gathering of those of us in the field, even someone like me who's a little bit weird. I'm an elected official, but I've got 38 years in this field. We can get this done, and we can get it done quickly, but we've got to have the will, and hopefully keep all of you safe and healthy from all of COVID, because I know it's hit my public works department bigly. So I understand those issues, but gosh darn it, San Mateo County, we need a commercial composting operation, period.
Well, thank you, Ann. Love your passion, love your spirit. It's been there for years. You're a longtime expert in this field, going all the way back to your San Jose days. And I've always admired you from afar and from close as a good colleague and passionate advocate here. I've been told that we're going to wind things up. So if I could just, first of all, say thank you to Gordon Tong and Monica DiVincenzi. Of course, I want to thank our dear friends at Sustainable San Mateo County, Christine and her team, for putting these kinds of chat sessions together, and all the great work that they do over the years. I think if we could leave you with just some parting thoughts here real quick. This bill was put together mainly because the state of California identified landfills as being super emitting targets, or emitting locations for greenhouse gas emissions, notably methane and biogases. So that's where the impetus of the bill came. So everything that followed that came from that finding. So, you know, we're trying to redirect this valuable material to other higher and better uses. And it's clearly going to take the next few years to figure it out, to get our capacity. And I don't disagree with you one bit on it. I would love to see an in-county composting facility, Monica and others. You know, you guys have the assets over there. It would be wonderful to see it. You know, there's an economic component to making that happen as well, of course, right? So they have to pencil out. I've been on the private side of the sector for many, many years, and I understand the realities of that.
The challenge is also, sorry, Joe, is, and it is something that my boss and I have been talking about it, Ox Mountain for the last year or two of doing some sort of pilot there. The challenge is, you know, it's all regulated by the state, and you would think with Cal Recycle coming out with these requirements, that all the state agencies would be on the same page, agree together, and make the process easy to go through because the need is there. But while Cal Recycle says organics, 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 Air Board, the Water Board get involved with the permitting and the review process, and things grind to a halt because they look at it, while yes, they agree that these are needed, their process mucks up everything in a lot of cases.
That's a kind
To put it in a.
So the point that you're relating to, and I can so appreciate this, is you've got different regulatory agencies that have conflicting rules and regulations. So we're trying to have a net positive effect to our community over here. And yet, guess what? The channels for approval of these things conflict with the other agency's mission. So there's going to be some shakeout of that over the next few years. And it's going to take the 70 people that were on this call, 75 people, whatever, and others who have political influence to make sure that our elected officials have a firm understanding of where the priorities are. So I appreciate that. And Monica, I wasn't saying that to put you on the spot. I did.
No, but I wanted to make sure that it's something that is
but that
on
would,
everybody's agenda to look at.
That would be a natural place for it. So with all that said, we want to thank you very much. Christine, did you have any final thoughts, or otherwise we'll see you on March 9th, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, to you, Joe, for a formidable moderation. I mean, that was really terrific. So we're really fortunate to have you here. And Monica and Gordon, I learned a ton. And, you know, I really appreciated the lively discussion. It was great to see all the other hauling companies being part of the conversation. I think there's definitely like more to unpack. So it's, you know, it's a team effort, and we need all the stakeholders to just, you know, get together and we can get it done. I think I heard a few times the word innovation, and that's definitely our region. And so I think with that, thank you for staying a little bit longer. We clearly have more to say on this topic, so stay tuned. And please do stay in touch with us. And then, as Joe said, our next happy hour is going to happen on March the 9th. And with that, I wish you a great evening. We'll try to answer the questions in the chat as much as we can. And yes, please keep in touch. And thank you all, and stay safe. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Time for a refill.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.